Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching third part of What If Naruto Became Power Hungry. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Naruto and Sasuke traveled to one of the Uchiha private training grounds near the compound. Naruto had checked their surroundings and placed seals to ensure that there were no spies nearby and that if anyone did come, he would be warned before they even entered his sensory range. Sakura had caught up with them after they left the Hokage's office and had asked Naruto for help in further improving her chakra control and super strength, and he gave her a few exercises and told her to come to him after she mastered them so he could give her further training. He'd also sent a clone to assist Karen with Fuinjutsu because he knew the redhead would eventually come after him and he'd rather not have his training interrupted. Before Naruto spoke, they made their way to the center of the training ground. "I'm guessing you don't just want a jutsu, Sasuke." Naruto continued as Sasuke nodded. "I can train you professionally, but I must warn you that it will be hell." "I don't care. If it makes me stronger, I'll do it." Naruto smiled at the boy's determination and told him to lie down on his back and remove his shirt and shorts, which Sasuke did but asked why. "First, I'll put in you the same level of seal I use. Yours works, but it's the first model I used. I've constantly improved mine over the years." Sasuke nodded and remained motionless as Naruto removed his current seal and replaced it on his back and limbs. When he was finished, Naruto instructed him to channel chakra to activate the seal, and when he did, he felt as if a mountain was on top of him. "Now," Naruto said, chuckling. "Your first goal should be to be able to move normally with that seal. I recommend using chakra to improve your strength at first, but once you're used to it, try it without it." Sasuke grunted as he attempted to stand, but even with all his strength, he could barely get off the ground. Naruto observed him as he went through his own training, blurring through taijutsu moves that Sasuke had to use the Sharingan to even follow. "Pay attention to your training. The longer you delay, the less time you will have to learn jutsu." By the end of the first day, Sasuke had barely managed to get to his feet with the help of chakra. Naruto had said it was impressive and that the only reason he had managed to do the same was because he had the Kyuubi inside him and could force his own muscles further due to his healing factor. The expression on Sasuke's face when Naruto revealed that all those moves he needed his dojutsu to even follow were all performed under the influence of the same seal was priceless. Third training day. With the help of chakra, Sasuke had finally managed to run an entire lap around the training field, though without it, he could only walk without falling, much to Naruto's amusement. He managed to get up without chakra after that. Naruto had instructed him to create as many clones as he could without depleting his chakra. He had created 3, and the clones had been working on improving Sasuke's lightning nature transformation, thankfully without the seal's effects on them. Naruto looked at Sasuke, who was on his knees, breathing heavily. "Do you need a rest?" "No. I can still keep going." He exhaled. Naruto said with a smile. "I hope so. You saw how Lee fought. If you want to become stronger, you will have to push yourself beyond your limits. Only when your body screams at you to stay down and you get back up will you be strong." From where he was on the ground, Sasuke laughed and said, "You know, Naruto, sometimes you act much older than you are." "I wonder why," Naruto mused, scratching his chin. 7th training day. Sasuke could now move normally without chakra after Naruto told him to remove the seal so he could get used to his speed, and he was surprised to discover that without the seal but without chakra, he could move almost as fast as he could with chakra previously. After that, he began doing taijutsu stances with the seal on, trying to move through them as quickly as he could. After about an hour, he collapsed exhausted on the ground. "I'm impressed with how quickly you're improving." Sasuke gave him a stern look and said, "Your damn Uzumaki stamina is a joke. How can you keep this up and not show any signs of even being tired?" "Oh, Someone with the Sharingan is telling me that my bloodline is nonsense? Naruto inquired, laughing. Sasuke continued to stare at Naruto but said nothing. I have good news for you. You should be nearly ready to begin learning the jutsu I have planned for you. With great effort, Sasuke rose and resumed his exercises. I should finish these then, he smirked. The 15th training day. Sakura entered the training field where she knew her teammates were, and she noticed Naruto watching as Sasuke moved through taijutsu stances quickly, while a few clones were concentrating on something, their hands raised to the sky and sweat covering their brows. She approached Naruto and greeted him, but Sasuke didn't seem to notice her presence, his movements having a mechanical precision that indicated that they were second nature by now, and that his body was doing them almost by itself while his mind was elsewhere. I completed the exercises you gave me, she stated. Then let me see. He was impressed by the level of chakra control she achieved when she showed him her progress. Very well. Now for the next part of the training, I want you to try to compress as much chakra as you can in your fist and release it exactly when you hit your target. Isn't that exactly what I've been doing? Trust me, give it a shot and you'll notice the difference. She walked up to one of the targets on the training field and did as she was told. She compressed her chakra and felt how much easier it was for her to do after her previous training. She hit the target, shattering it on impact but feeling a jolt of pain shooting up her arm. You see, so far your body has been able to withstand the backlash of using super strength, but as it increases, you will end up hurting yourself just as much as your opponent. How should I handle this? She inquired. He motioned for her to hold his arm, and even though she wasn't a sensor, she could feel the chakra build up in Naruto's arm at that distance, and she noticed that he was gathering a lot more chakra than she was, compressing it into a thick layer instead of her thin one. You must also strengthen your muscles with chakra to handle backslash, or you will simply break your arm. As you improve, you will be able to gather more and more chakra, further increasing your strength. With mastery, you can punch someone with enough force to bruise, break bones, and even bring down mountains. She spent the rest of the day attempting to replicate what Naruto did, and by the end of the day she had made some progress. As Sakura and Sasuke were leaving, Naruto turned to the woods and said, I thought I told you to avoid me, Jiraiya. The Sannin jumped from the tree line and stood across from Naruto, wanting to get closer but seeing how the blonde's body tensed, ready for a fight, he decided against it. He's got good instincts, Jiraiya observed. He noticed the boy's demeanor, closed off and tense with barely restrained anger, the opposite to the man he so resembled, the man who was always so carefree and open. As he looked at the boy in front of him, blonde hair and blue eyes so familiar but so different. He'd seen Minato fight, and while ruthless to his enemies, he was never calculating, not like the boy in front of him, whose gaze seemed to deconstruct him as much as he was doing to the boy, whose gaze seemed to categorize everything about him, looking for weaknesses to exploit. Strangely enough, the boy seemed to only be listing things he already knew instead of discovering new things. I've been looking for you for a while now, but I couldn't find you before. I always seem to miss this place. Naruto fixed his gaze on him but said nothing. His eyes were fixed in a glare. Almost as if there was something making me miss it, Jiraiya said, and Naruto narrowed his eyes at him. He had placed a genjutsu around the area so that anyone who wasn't looking for it would be more likely to ignore it. Anything more heavy-handed than that would tip off Sensor Ninja and defeat its purpose. Jiraiya decided to test his luck, taking a few steps towards the blonde. Naruto went from wary to outright on guard, his body subconsciously moving to his fighting stance. Jiraiya saw this and stopped, looking at the blonde sadly and saying, I'm not going to attack you, you understand? I simply wish to converse. I have nothing to say to people like you, Naruto snarled. Look, okay, I'm sorry, I know I should have been there for you, but I was needed outside the village, so I couldn't be here. Oh, yes? You're sure it wasn't because seeing a miniature version of your apprentice was too painful? Because you'd rather drink, whore, and write your fucking books than look after a child? Jiraiya flinched at that. It was one of the thoughts that his guilt had caused him to have. What do you want me to say? I'm sorry. I was mistaken, but now I'm here to make amends. All I need is a second chance. You know, I'm sick of people just showing up in my life when they should have been there for years. You don't get to come to me at your leisure. I needed you 13 fucking years ago, and what did you do? You fucked off and abandoned a newborn. I was in mourning, you state. It was too painful. Oh well, you're an adult, deal with it. I was a baby. I wasn't a Konoha shinobi. I didn't have to suffer for the sake of this village. I had no obligation to it. You swore an oath to defend it. I hadn't. I went through all of this nonsense because of two fuckwits who couldn't get their fucking priorities straight. Jiraiya was taken aback by the outburst. The raw emotion in it made it clear that the blonde despised him and all of them. However, Naruto, your parents saved the village. They are heroes. They loved you. But they had to protect Konoha. Those sons of bitches aren't my parents. They lost that right when they thought turning me into a Jinchuriki was a fucking acceptable solution. Those bastards aren't heroes. Heroes don't turn babies into weapons, they don't sacrifice other people for their goal, and they don't abandon their own children to a village that despises them. It wasn't meant to be this way. Your father wanted you to be a hero, he loved you, but he couldn't let the Kyuubi rampage unchecked, and only an Uzumaki can stop it. He couldn't leave Konoha without a Jinchuriki. Namikaze was a monster, not a hero. Heroes don't slaughter whole armies, armies full of people with families and hopes and dreams, all lost because your so-called hero killed them in cold blood, and if he really loved me, we wouldn't be here. He would have grabbed me and been halfway across the elemental nations before anyone noticed, because he would have understood that the moment he put a life in this miserable fucking world. Naruto came to a halt, realizing that he had let emotion get the best of him and had said too much. Each word Naruto said hurt Jiraiya more and more. He looked at the blonde sadly, barely registering the sudden halt. He said once Naruto recomposed himself. Leave me alone, Jiraiya. I don't need you. I don't want you. I don't want any of his or your techniques, and I especially don't want anything to do with your prophecy. Find another savior. Jiraiya snapped out of his funk, looking at the blonde with wide eyes and saying, shocked. You're aware of the prophecy? I do. How, though? I have my ways, but, as I said, find another savior. I won't be trained by you, and I certainly don't care about world peace. I know what the prophecy is and what it means, and I don't care. The world is fine as far as I'm concerned. Wait, what exactly does it mean? Jiraiya was taken aback by Naruto's apparent knowledge of the prophecy, which he seemed to know in greater detail than Jiraiya. Naruto debated whether or not to tell him, but decided that as long as he didn't reveal any specifics, there would be no problems, and that doing so would be an appropriate form of retaliation against Jiraiya. Two brothers, sons of the Sage of the Six Paths, the eldest Indra and the youngest Ashura, reincarnating their souls every few generations through their descendants, the Uchiha and the Senju, destined to battle to decide the fate of the ninja world. Indra would bring peace through power, crushing whoever stood against him. Ashura would bring peace through love, uniting the world and helping humanity understand each other. The sage's sons? Naruto is a legend. That's not what the Kyuubi said. They were created by the sage and have existed since his time. It was them who recognized my soul as Ashura and revealed the truth about the prophecy. They even revealed who my previous incarnations were. Who? Jiraiya couldn't help but inquire. Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. Jiraiya was taken aback. He wanted to deny it, to say that the beast had lied to the boy, but the more he thought about it, the more it fit not only in his prophecy but also in the historical events he was familiar with. Madara and Hashirama, Indra and Ashura, power and love, it all made too much sense. Of course, we're still our own people. I'm not the same person as Hashirama or even Ashura. With the Uchiha clan dead, I'm not sure what the situation with Indra is, but I'm Naruto, and I'm no savior. Even if I have Ashura's soul, I don't care about world peace or saving anyone. Naruto said with a cruel smirk to Jiraiya. I hope you are happy. I hope you and the bastards are happy knowing that your choices broke the prophecy, that for the first time in over 1,000 years the incarnation of Ashura decided humanity was not worth it and that if it wanted to be saved it would have to save itself. No more excuses. Your fate is in your hands. I hope you can deal with the consequences of your actions. I hope it doesn't come down to it because. Finals of the Chunin exam. Naruto had taken Sasuke to a more remote location outside the village to ensure that no one saw the jutsu he was teaching him. They had spent the remainder of the time before the finals there, returning to the village only a day before they began. He had received a visit last night from one of Orochimaru's henchmen, who brought him the DNA he had been promised. He had been eager to get Kurama's other half and had wanted to go get it right then and there, but Kurama had reminded him that there was no way Konoha would miss the chakra spike and that he should leave it for when he was ready to leave the village, as once he did, there would be no turning back. He was glad Sasuke had learned the jutsu because even with the Sharingan and being taught rather than creating it, he doubted the Uchiha could learn it in such a short time. They made their way to the arena where the exams would be held. It was crowded, and the line for spectators was long. Naruto laughed when he saw a distraught Karen waiting to get in, as only competitors and their sensei were permitted in the lower sections. They noticed Sakura and Kakashi and approached them, but Naruto frowned when he sensed Jiraiya nearby, probably watching him. They hadn't spoken since that day on the training ground, but the clone Naruto had left to cover him while he was away had noticed the Sannin following him around. Luckily, Jiraiya didn't appear to be willing to approach him, which suited Naruto just fine because he needed distance from the man. Sakura recognized them and greeted them, while Kakashi only gave an eye smile, though given Naruto's apprehension from him, he assumed the Cyclops had heard of his argument with Jiraiya, most likely from the Hokage because he was the only one who had justification to be close enough to the blonde to watch him. Naruto cursed himself, he had let too much slip, he didn't know why, but despite considering himself an outsider, he had started to feel a personal connection to these people, not a positive one, but one where he felt the wrongs they had done that he had always seen as something distant were now personal. It was like with Minato, he hated the man even from his previous life, but unlike before where he hated him on principle for what. My time here is really getting to me, he reflected. Are you alright, kid? Kurama inquired. Not at all, no. Would you like to talk about it? I always felt somewhat shielded, you know, like I had an adult mind in a child's body, but the more time I spend here, the more I feel my old self fading away. Does that make it a bad thing? Not really, I'm not Naruto, not the one I knew anyway, but I'm also no longer my old self, it's like they're merging, that's why I didn't want to mimic his personality. I already feel suffocated here in Konoha having to play pretend all the time, having to suppress who I am scared me. I get it, believe me, I do, being trapped here was hell for me at first, but with you it's better because we're Parthers and I can just come out as a clone, just hang in there, we'll be free soon enough and you won't have to pretend anymore. I know, I just hope I don't completely lose myself before I can taste freedom. You will not. When the first fight was called, Naruto was jolted back to reality, looking at Sasuke and saying, "Kick his shins." I will, Sasuke said slyly. Sasuke vs. Shikamaru. Both competitors entered the arena, the crowds cheering as they saw the final Uchiha fight, many of whom had come because of the boy's, or rather his clan's, fame. After the massacre, everyone was waiting to see what the last Uchiha could do, and while most nations already had an idea because they all had spies in each other, civilians did not. Shikamaru said as they both got into fighting position. I was about to give up when my mother threatened me into fighting you. You'll never become a Chunin in that manner. It's just more work. Honestly, I only took the exam to help my team. When Sasuke shook his head and signaled the proctor that he was ready, Shikamaru did the same, and the fight began. Ready. Fight. Shikamaru threw a smoke bomb into the ground, and Sasuke, who had been waiting to see what the Nara would do, backed away from the smoke and searched for his opponent. Shikamaru stood in a tree and threw a kunai at Sasuke, who caught it midair and threw it back at the boy. Shikamaru evaded by jumping to another tree and throwing another one, just like the first one Sasuke caught, but this time he noticed an explosive tag in it, so he quickly threw it away, but that provided the necessary distraction for Nara to cast his shadow at Sasuke. The Uchiha, on the other hand, saw it coming and jumped over it, towards the Nara. Shikamaru retreated his shadow, but Sasuke was faster and managed to have the boy at his mercy, kunai at his throat. When the shadow jumped from Shikamaru and caught Sasuke, Nara moved to make the Uchiha surrender when he stepped out of the shadow and smirked at him. Shikamaru's last thought before everything went dark was Genjutsu. Back in the bleachers, Naruto was pleased with his friend's performance. He expected Sasuke to simply overpower Shikamaru or speed blitz him as he knew Sasuke could, but instead he caught him in a trap. Very good, he said. Sasuke was declared the winner and returned to the bleachers, smirking at Naruto, who smirked back and nodded, and Kakashi placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Well done, Sasuke." The Uchiha grunted and nodded, looking at Gaara, whom he knew he'd have to fight in the next round, and giggling at the jutsu he'd use on the red-headed Jinchuriki. Naruto paused as the proctor announced the next match. This should be interesting. Sakura vs. Temari. Naruto said with a smile to Sakura. Send her hell. Sasuke nodded in encouragement, and she smiled as she walked to the arena, where her opponent awaited her. I'm hoping you'll give me a better challenge than the other kunoichi I've faced so far, because they were all pathetic. Don't worry, I'll give you a fight you'll never forget. Temari actually grinned at her opponent. She could tell Sakura was good, but she wasn't the Kazukage's daughter for nothing. Sakura charged at Temari, who jumped back and swung her war fan, sending a large gust of wind towards Sakura, but what surprised her was that the kunoichi didn't get pushed back but instead fell on all fours in a runner position, using chakra to stick to the floor. Sakura jumped towards Temari after the gust passed, her legs cracking the ground with their strength. She used super strength to gain speed, smart, Naruto observed. She reached the Suna kunoichi and drew her fist back. Temari moved her fan to block, but that proved a mistake as Sakura's fist collided with it and threw Temari back, cracking her fan. Sakura did not escape unscathed, however, as she cried in pain and clutched her arm. She hasn't mastered it yet, Naruto reasoned. She's expending too much chakra, Sasuke observed, his Sharingan activated. She is still adjusting to the backlash. Back in the arena, Temari recovered and threw several wind blades at Sakura, who dodged to the best of her ability while trying to get closer but still taking a few cuts. She threw a few shuriken at Temari, who had to block with her fan and lost visibility for a moment. Her instincts screamed at her to dodge and she ducked under a punch from Sakura, which created a hole in the wall behind them, the pink-haired girl. Sakura didn't give her another second as she kept the pressure on Temari, eventually pinning her down and punching her again, shattering the war fan. Temari used the opportunity to hit her with its remains, knocking her back, after she let out another scream of pain. Sakura got down on her knees, one hand supporting her weight and the other hanging limply from her sides, rendered useless by the backslash of her jutsu and the cuts she took. Temari approached her, bruised and exhausted but still on her feet. You did well, Temari said, but in the end, I'm still better. Sakura let out another breath as the Suna girl approached. When she was close enough, Sakura smirked and lunged at her, the previously useless arm burying itself in Temari's gut, causing Temari to stagger and Sakura to push her to the floor and straddle her. She began punching the other girl, whose arms screamed at the force of the blows. After the third hit, she screamed. I'm done. Sakura exhaled a sigh of relief as she rolled out of the girl and onto her feet. She was already looking towards her teammates as the proctor announced her victory, and she was overjoyed at the approval and pride they were directing at her. She returned to her spot and leaned against the wall, her hands glowing green and holding her injured arm. Naruto watched the subsequent fights, but his attention was drawn back to Orochimaru at the cage booth. Would his presence change anything? Will Hiruzen survive? Will Orochimaru perish? That would be awkward. Shino fought Kankuro, but neither was a threat, and Naruto preferred not to look at Shino's bugs. In the end, the Konoha Genin won because his opponent surrendered, most likely to save his strength for the invasion. He paid more attention to Gaara's fight with Dosu, but his sound-based attacks were ineffective against the Jinchuriki's sand, and he was promptly crushed to death. Soon it was time for his match, and despite not having a new opponent, he was actually excited because he had been wanting to fight someone with a Byakugan for a long time and had prepared something specifically for the Hyuga. Naruto vs Neji. Naruto walked down to the arena with a smirk on his lips and excitement radiating from his body language, which Neji clearly didn't like based on his scowl. Both fighters approached each other, and Neji spoke. You should just give up. You're doomed to fail here. Oh, and how come? Naruto inquired, mockingly. Fate controls everything. I am fated to defeat you, even if you are the so-called strongest genin in the exams, Neji grumbled. And what do you mean by fate? Fate is what determines everything. It defines everything that exists, everything we do, and everything we are. Naruto couldn't stop himself from laughing, and Neji scowled and spat. If you deny fate, you're a fool. Naruto exhaled deeply and said. Oh, I don't deny it. In fact, you have no idea how correct you are. Do you realize you're doomed to lose to me here? Naruto grinned, a grin of ecstatic pleasure mixed with a dash of insanity. Oh, Neji, fate is the strings that control everything, and guess what? Warning bells rang in Neji's head as the proctor signaled the start of the match, and Naruto's grin widened and his eyes shone with delight. There are no strings attached to me. Even with his Byakugan on, all Neji saw was blur before a fist slammed in his gut with such force that he was lifted off the floor. He fell to his knees but had no time to recover before a kick launched him towards a wall. Chidori storm style. Naruto's hand burst with purple lightning as he dashed at Neji, who only had time to turn his head to the side as Naruto's lightning-coated fist buried itself in the wall and blew it up. The exploding propelled Neji away and he finally recovered enough to get a good look at the blonde, and what he saw made him recoil. How is it possible for a human to have so much chakra? Not only that, but the technique Naruto was using was so bright that Neji felt he wouldn't be able to pull it off even with all of his reserves. It flickered off and Neji tried to rush Naruto. He made it to the blonde but a sudden chakra flare blinded him temporarily. He received a backhand across the face and staged back. What's the matter, Hyuga? Naruto laughed. What is your current fate? Neji rushed him and began launching Juken strikes at the blonde, who thought he was insane because he blocked them instead of dodging, but before he could try to understand, he was punched by an arm he thought he had immobilized. He took a step back and looked at Naruto warily. Despite the dozens of hits he had landed, the blonde seemed fine. He was just standing there, grinning at him and so open that it could only be an insult to him, so he spoke to buy time to come up with a plan. How did you withstand my blows? Your chakra system should be shut down after so many blows. You're now playing with the big boys, Hyuga, and your little love taps are pointless. Neji said with a frown. I'm not sure what you're pulling, but I'm still destined to win here. Fate is for cowards, pitiful weaklings who prefer subservience to rebellion. You know nothing about fate, about being predestined from birth. Neji yelled. But that is where you are mistaken. I know better than anyone else. Just as you are fated to suffer as a result of being enslaved by your own family, so was I, but I fought back. Living without freedom is not living, it is merely surviving, and I refuse to let anyone but myself dictate my life. How would you know? Neji yelled, his voice filled with rage. What do you know about being enslaved? Of having your life planned out for you? Feeling like a prisoner in your own home? More than you realize, Naruto said. Neji charged at him, abandoning caution and unleashing a barrage of lightning-fast Juken strikes on the blonde, who kept dodging and blocking them all. As he continued, he became sloppy, both from anger and exhaustion. Eventually, Naruto grew tired of his attempts and pushed both of his arms away, grabbing him by the neck. I expected more from the Hyuga's genius. Stop talking. Neji yelled as he tried to break free by hitting Naruto's arm. You have talent, but you're being held back, which is a shame.
You know absolutely nothing about me.
You could be so much more if the Hyuga didn't enslave their family over silly traditions, Naruto said, shaking his head. Naruto threw him away after a while and speed through hand seals as Neji glared at him and kept hitting his pressure points in an attempt to break free. Electric smoke storm style. He spit a dark cloud of mist at Neji, which sparked with electrical discharges in its vicinity. Neji had to deactivate the Byakugan in order not to be blinded by the sheer chakra in that jutsu. He moved back, but the mist kept expanding until he ran out of space. He couldn't see anything inside the mist and kept getting hit by small bolts of lightning. He saw a silhouette rushing towards him and moved. The 8 trigrams of rotation. Naruto pierced the mist with his hand covered in another storm style. Chidori dashed towards Neji and rammed his jutsu into Neji's. He'll never be able to pierce my jutsu, Neji reasoned. Naruto's jutsu suddenly became much stronger, punching a hole in Neji's and blowing him away, causing him to fall to the ground with a thud and lay unconscious. Naruto came to a halt and looked at Neji for a moment before turning away and returning to his seat in the bleachers, the proctor announcing his victory and ordering the medics to remove Neji as he approached. Naruto, what did you use? I'd never seen anything like it, and Chidori seemed more powerful than usual. I call it hybrid jutsu because I don't have any Kiki Genkai, so I learned to create jutsu of multiple elements at the same time to compensate. Wow, that's impressive. How did you do it? It's similar to combination jutsu. For example, if I use a wind jutsu and Sasuke uses a fire one, we get a more powerful fireball. I try to create these jutsu by myself. I cast both jutsu at the same time and fire the combination. Kakashi said with a nod. I see, and what makes up your storm style? Honestly, the storm style. Electric smoke is something I came up with while working in another jutsu. Did you think of any others? You don't expect me to respond, do you? After that, Kakashi remained silent, and the next match was called, which made Naruto grin. It's about to get started. Gaara vs. Sasuke. Sasuke grinned as he approached the Suna Jinchuriki in the arena when Naruto put his hand on his shoulder and said, "Don't murder him." He found it strange, but he trusted Naruto, so he nodded. He met the other Chunin with his arms crossed, arrogance radiating from every part of his body except his face, which held a bloodthirsty grin and gleaming eyes. You're brave. I'll give your blood to your mother. Sasuke found it strange, but Naruto had already informed him of the boy's circumstances, so he ignored it. On a side note, one day he'd figure out how Naruto always seemed to know things he shouldn't. His curiosity was driving him insane. I'll demonstrate the power of a Uchiha. The boy remained motionless in response to Sasuke's declaration. Sasuke nodded at the proctor and assumed his fighting stance, eager to put the boy's ostensibly perfect defense to the test. As soon as the match began, the proctor dashed at the redhead with speeds comparable to Lee without his weights, launching a sideways kick that blew Gaara's sand away, surprising him but not injuring him. Sasuke then threw a punch to Gaara's chest, taking no chances, which proved wise when the punch blew through the sand and collided with Gaara's block, knocking him back a few meters. Gaara fired sand projectiles at Sasuke, but he was too quick. The Uchiha moved to attack again, but Gaara was ready this time. He sent a wave of sand at Uchiha, who punched through but was quickly encased by sand, and Gaara said, "The sand coffin." When the sand returned to Gaara, all that was visible were splinters of wood. Gaara searched for his opponent, and his sand blocked a few kunai that came flying towards him. The kunai exploded in the sand, and the smoke obscured Gaara's vision. When he saw Sasuke speeding through hand seals after the smoke cleared, the Uchiha took a deep breath and said, "Dragon's Breath Fire Style." He spit out a torrent of flames that flew at Gaara. The Jinchuriki used his sand to shield himself, but the heat made it difficult to breathe. After a while the jutsu stopped, but most watching, including Gaara, were perplexed as to why he aimed the jutsu upwards and kept it going for a few moments before letting it dissipate. "Are you sure Shukaku can handle it?" Naruto wondered. "At the level that Uchiha employs it?" Gaara's breathing became heavy after his defense crumbled, and he glared at his opponent before sending another wave of sand at him, this time much larger than before. He noticed Sasuke jumping and sticking to the wall to avoid it. Sasuke began going through hand seals again, but Gaara attacked him before he could finish. He dodged the incoming sand arms and finished the seals in midair before saying, "Fire style. Fantastic fireball." The fireball flew at the Jinchuriki, who summoned 2 sand arms to block it. He was surprised when the fireball made contact with his arms and did not explode, instead pushing Gaara back. "The level of control required to manipulate fire after it has been released is impressive. Your student is really good, Kakashi," Asuma commented. Kakashi nodded, but he was as surprised as the others to see this, and he cast a sidelong glance at Naruto and Sakura, thinking, "These kids are incredible." When he realized that his fireball alone wouldn't be enough, Sasuke sped through hand seals and yelled, "Great breakthrough in wind style." The force of the wind surprised Kakashi. A genin using 2 elements at that level was ridiculous. The kid was easily Chunin material, probably even Jonin given his showings with lightning release, and as if to further prove his point, the wind didn't go directly towards Gaara, instead hitting the fireball and amplifying it. Raw power and a tactical mind, Sasuke is truly unique, he thought as he looked at Naruto. "I just wish I had a bigger role in it." The fireball began to push Gaara's sand arms closer to the Jinchuriki. He poured even more sand and chakra into them, but this left a gap in his defenses. A kunai coated in lightning chakra struck him in the back, piercing his sand armor and striking him in the shoulder. The pain distracted him, and the fireball overpowered him and blew up, filling the stadium with smoke. When it cleared, Gaara's skin was cracking and turning to sand, revealing the real Gaara beneath, breathing hard and with a bloodied shoulder. When he removed his hand from his shoulder, he noticed it was red. "What blood?" "My blood." The Suna team was taken aback. Gaara had never been injured before, and they knew the Uchiha was powerful, but he had far exceeded their expectations. Sasuke's Sharingan kept a close eye on the redhead as he seemed to snap and go feral. He was encased in a sand cocoon, and Sasuke thought, "The time has come." As he sped through the hand seals and raised his hand, the thunderstorm that had formed began twisting and raging. Clouds lit up constantly as the sky seemed to darken and darken, cold gusts of wind picked up, and everyone in the arena could feel that something powerful was approaching. "What is he doing, Naruto?" Kakashi inquired, concerned. Kurenai inquired as all the other Jonin looked at Kakashi, perplexed. "What do you mean, you don't know, Kakashi?" Kakashi said with a shake of his head. "It was Naruto who trained Sasuke this month, not me." The Jonin, as well as the Hokage and Jiraiya, looked at Naruto with surprise. In another situation, the blonde might have remarked to Kakashi that it wasn't just this month, but he was far too focused on the arena bellow. But how? Jiraiya wondered. I was watching him. Could it have been a clone? But for it to last this long. What are you doing, Naruto-kun? Hiruzen wondered. Interesting. This appears to be the technique he was going to use on me in the forest, Orochimaru, disguised as the Kazekage, thought, his curiosity overpowering any concerns that this might jeopardize his plans. Gaara emerged from the cocoon, his left arm and half of his face transformed into his tailed beast form, and he glared at Sasuke with insanity and bloodthirst in his eyes. Blood. I'll take your blood. He yelled angrily. Sasuke scowled at him, his Sharingan spinning quickly, and said, You're nothing but a rabid animal, and it's past time you were put down. Sasuke yelled before Orochimaru could begin the invasion or the Jonin who realized what Gaara was could do anything about it. Away with the thunderclap. He yelled as he lowered his hand. Kirin lightning style. A massive dragon made of lightning appeared from the clouds, striking the ground so quickly that neither the cage above nor Naruto could keep up, colliding with Gaara and exploding, destroying the arena and creating a cloud of dust large enough to completely cover the stadium. What the fuck was that? Asuma exclaimed, stunned. Kurenai exclaimed, That's a genin. What the fuck did you teach him, Naruto? Demanded Kakashi. The smoke was clearing and Naruto first saw Sasuke, on his knees in one of the corners and breathing heavily. He saw the Uchiha stand up while leaning on the wall and scan the battlefield for his opponent. He merely smirked. He then noticed Gaara, his previously transformed arm, along with all of his sand, had been turned to glass by the sheer power of the attack and subsequently shattered, but unlike the glass, his human arm that had been beneath the sand had been incinerated. He now had a stump where his arm socket used to be and the wound had been cauterized by the attack, leaving him with several severe burns all over his body. The Junchuriki let out an animalistic roar before being covered in red-tailed beast chakra and beginning his transformation. His red cloak grew in size until it was massive. The cloak shifted, turning a sand-like color. He sprouted claws even in his destroyed arm and a tail. And once completely transformed, he let out another roar before crashing through the wall and into the forest, destroying everything in his path. While this was going on, glowing white feathers fell from the sky, causing all civilians to fall asleep. Most ninja were still on alert from Sasuke's attack and were able to quickly break out of the genjutsu, while an explosion in the cage drew everyone's attention. The invasion had started. Away from the stadium. Naruto pursued Shukaku as he went on his rampage, waiting until they were far enough away from the stadium so he wouldn't be exposed. As soon as the transformation occurred, Naruto dashed after them, ignoring Kakashi and the others shouting at him. He knew Sasuke would follow and hoped no one else would. He knew Sasuke wouldn't sell him out, but he couldn't risk anyone else learning what he was about to do. Just a few more months, he reasoned. He flew from tree to tree following the trail of destruction that Shukaku had left behind. The trees battered aside like nothing by the beast's mere steps as they moved deeper into the forest. He jumped above the canopy and assessed the situation. He could see the barrier on top of the arena, so Orochimaru was probably fighting Hiruzen. The man's snake summons could be seen bursting through the walls of the village. He assumed Jiraiya should be summoning. He focused on his sensory range. There seemed to be a few people following him. One he was certain was Sasuke. The Uchiha was exhausted after that jutsu but wasn't one to stop fighting while he could still stand. The other two were most likely the Suna siblings. Gaara was their brother despite everything and they wouldn't abandon him. They're very noble, stupid, but noble, he thought. He didn't feel anyone else, but there was always the possibility that someone outside his sensory range could sneak up on him mid-battle while he was distracted, so he didn't let down his guard. He continued following until he was reasonably certain that no one would see him fight, but it was better to be safe than sorry. Kurama. The only way I can defeat a Biju without revealing too much is through your chakra. I instructed you to obtain a summons. And I told you I fight my own battles. Why would I need a summon when I can just ask you to manifest and kick their ass? And you think having me there in person is preferable? No, but I don't need a full manifestation, just the basic chakra cloak, at most 4 tails. Naruto heard Kurama grunt in his head. He knew the Kyuubi wouldn't deny him chakra, but he couldn't help but laugh at their antics. Tsunere Fox, he thought. Oh, I heard that. He ignored Kurama as the red cloak of chakra enveloped him. His nails turned to claws and his canines turned to fangs. He felt the chakra tail manifest and his senses became sharper. He could feel the animalistic aggression growing within him. He still held control, and even if he didn't, he trusted Kurama to watch their backs, but the form made his primal instincts stronger, and he let out an excited growl. Let's have a good time. Return to the stadium. Karen had been defending herself against the auto shinobi that had appeared. She wanted to pursue Naruto but was surrounded before she could. She had just defeated the last one with some fuinjutsu she had learned from Naruto's scrolls when she felt a dark and bloodthirsty chakra radiating from where Naruto had fled, which she immediately recognized as the chakra that resided inside Naruto, and couldn't help but notice how similar it was to the chakra the redhead had radiated before transforming into that thing. You better be okay, Naruto, I'm not going to lose anyone else, she reasoned before rushing after the blonde. The outside forest. Naruto rushed on all fours towards Shukaku. The Tanuki turned to feel Kurama's chakra, but a howl from Naruto sent a wave of air pressure that blew one of his legs off. As they tried to regain their balance and reform their legs, Naruto slammed into them with enough force to knock them to the ground, then jumped on their heads and hit them with a chakra claw. Shukaku tried to knock him back with a claw, but he jumped over it and growled at him. Shukaku. Kyuubi, have you turned into some brat's pet now? The response was Naruto spinning and hitting them with a tail to the face. They managed to push him off and get up. He had blasted through a few trees from the blow before stopping. He rushed at Shukaku again, but this time they sent sand blasts that created massive craters where they hit. Shukaku sent a wave of sand as he approached. Naruto jumped over it, but the sand shot up and caught him midair. It tried to crush him, but his claws extended and latched on Shukaku's head and pulled. He broke free from the sand and launched himself at the tailed beast's face, punching a portion of their head off. Shukaku tried to slap them out of the sky with one hand while they held their face in pain with the other. You will be mine, Shukaku, Naruto declared. I'm going to kill you, kill, kill. They exclaimed. Shukaku brought their claw down on Naruto, intent on crushing him, but the blonde blew it off with another howl, manifesting a second tail and flying at Shukaku much faster than before, going through the claw that tried to block him and hitting them in the chest with both tails, causing them to fly back and hit the ground hard. Naruto jumped high and attempted to slam into Shukaku, but he was hit by a reformed claw and launched away at high speeds. As he stood up, he noticed a massive wave of sand rushing at him. Kurama! Exclaimed Naruto. Let's do it! Kurama exclaimed. As Naruto opened his mouth, both tails joined above his head, and a dark purple ball of chakra began to form above him as the sand wave approached. Just as it was about to hit, he ate the ball and turned towards the wave. When he opened his mouth, a beam of energy shot out and destroyed everything in its path. It vaporized a wave of sand and blew a hole in Shukaku behind it. Trees that once stood in its path were now gone, and a massive trench had formed where it traveled. When Naruto noticed Shukaku wasn't getting up again and the sand that composed him was disappearing, leaving only a whimpering redhead behind, he let out a breath and returned to normal. When he felt the signatures he had missed during the battle approaching, Naruto cursed. As he approached the armless boy, he noticed both of his siblings standing in front of him, clearly intent on protecting him. Sasuke and Karen appeared beside him, though he could feel her fear while Sasuke only held apprehension and jealousy. He sighed, knowing that if anyone saw the fight, he could always claim that the Biju had offered him the chakra and he had no choice but to accept, but Karen was a censor. Not only that, but her mind's eye of Kagura could feel somebody's nature based on their chakra. He'd have to explain to the girl what he was, and that despite his chakra, or rather Kurama's, he wasn't going to hurt her. He shook his head. Neither Sasuke nor Karen should sell him out. That was the best case scenario. His precaution to ensure no one knew his true power by using Kurama's proved unnecessary, and he was grateful for that, even if it meant revealing a few things to the girl. As he approached, he noticed both siblings tense. Kankuro pulled out his puppet, while Tamari took a fighting stance, missing the previously destroyed fan. Tamari said, "Leave our brother alone." "You'd protect him? After everything he's done to you?" Naruto asked, surprised. Both siblings flinched at the memories and had uncertain expressions on their faces, but those expressions quickly changed to determination, and Tamari said, "However, he's our brother, and we won't abandon him, even if it means fighting you. You, too, can't beat me. You saw what I did, you know who I am. Would you rather die than abandon him?" Their expressions remained unchanged as Kankuro responded, "We're not abandoning him, even if it means fighting you." Stop, Gaara mumbled. "Please do not injure them." "Gaara?" Tamari was taken aback. "Please don't hurt them." Gaara slowly rose to his feet, having difficulty standing due to his missing arm, and walked to the space between his siblings, saying, "Please don't harm them. I'll do whatever you want." Before Naruto spoke again, he looked at them in silence for a moment, and Sasuke wondered what was going through the blonde's head. "I respect that, believe me, I do, and if more people understood the true value of family as you do, the world would be a better place." The Suna siblings were perplexed, but they kept their guard up and continued to look warily at the blonde. Naruto shook his head and gave them a sad expression. "Unfortunately, no matter how much I wish it did, that doesn't change reality." Naruto's hand burst with purple lightning, he blurred out of view, and Gaara collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Tamari noticed this with concern before becoming numb. She looked at her other brother and saw him looking at her with horror in his face, not even noticing the hole in his chest. She felt down and looked towards both of her siblings as the world grew dark around her. A tear spilled from her eye. And her last thoughts crossed her mind. "Goodbye, I love you too," Naruto said as he looked at the two corpses and the unconscious Gaara. "Isn't this world we live in truly hell?" He turned to face his two companions. Sasuke seemed to understand what Naruto was saying, while Karen was torn between fear and sympathy for the blonde. His actions were horrifying, but they were ninja, and the tone in his voice suggested that he was disappointed that it had come to this. He turned to Karen and said, "I'm sure you have questions, and I'll answer them in due time, but I have something I need to do right now." He approached the redhead and withdrew a large scroll from a seal in his clothing, placed the boy over it, channeled some chakra, and vanished in a puff of smoke. "This will keep him contained until we can get to the Gedo Mazo," he reasoned. "What now?" Kurama inquired. "We're now on our way to the Uzumaki clan's temple." He turned to face them and stated, "I don't think I need to say this, but nobody knows what happened here," he continued after receiving two nods. "Alright, I'm off to the Uzumaki temple now. Will you come with me?" Sasuke pondered for a moment before asking. Karen nodded immediately, curious about this temple of her clan and calmer now that Naruto's chakra had returned to the comforting one she knew. "What are you looking for?" "The key to my liberation. Temple of Uzumaki." Karen was fascinated by what used to be a sacred spot for her now dead clan. The paintings on the walls and the adornments, even if eroded by the passage of time and poor maintenance, displayed the culture of the Uzumaki clan, She even saw a few symbols of figures her mother used to tell her about back when she was just a little girl. It all felt amazing to her, like going back in time to when. Sasuke looked around with curiosity, having asked Naruto about his clan. He couldn't help but feel respect and sympathy for the Uzumaki. The clan had been powerful, enough that it took a massive force to destroy them. The Uchiha were proud, but if there was one thing they respected, it was strength, and he could admit the clan was strong. He also understood what it was like to lose your entire clan, and while he lost them personally and to betrayal, he was also relieved that the blonde did not claim to understand what it was like, because he didn't need pity, and his case was far more traumatic, and it made him respect Naruto even more that the blonde understood but did not pity him for it. He could also understand Karen's immediate attraction to Naruto. He not only saved her, but she also found family when she thought she had none left. He knew he would kill for another Uchiha. Naruto looked around, trying to find the item he needed to not only recover Kurama's other half but also probably get something out of Orochimaru, if he could find it. He went through many rooms but, contrary to his hopes, he didn't find what he was looking for or anything else of interest. The place was amazing, but the longer he stayed the more likely he would be missed, and now that Shukaku had been dealt with, there was only so long he could claim to be resting. There was an invasion going on, and he didn't need people wondering if he really was taking a nap while foreign ninja invaded Konoha. They continued their search until he noticed a familiar wall in the corner of his eye. He approached it, and the other two followed. While he scanned the wall for the specific object, Karen read the inscription. The Uzumaki Wall of Masks, each with a unique meaning to the clan and allowing the user to perform unique secret Uzumaki jutsu. Is this what you've been looking for? Naruto grinned as he discovered it, then removed the mask from the wall and polished it. The mask of the Shinigami. Why do you want the Shinigami mask? It's not like you know how to use it, Karen pointed out. Oh, you'd be surprised to know what I know, Naruto chuckled, barely able to contain his excitement at holding the final piece of the puzzle, the thing that, when used, would mean the end of his stay in Konoha and his first taste of freedom. She gave him a strange look but didn't question him. He carefully stored the mask and turned to face the two of them. Let's go, it's just a matter of time. The following day, Hiruzen Sarutobi had died as Naruto had predicted, sealing Orochimaru's arms inside the Shinigami's stomach alongside his own soul. Jiraiya had dealt with Orochimaru's summons but had arrived too late to assist his late sensei, and the snake himself had escaped with his elite guards. After the temple, they returned to the village proper and assisted in the repeal of the invasion. They agreed that after stopping Shukaku, they were closer to the village and thus had not returned to the stadium. Except for the siblings Naruto had killed in Gaara, who had been vaporized by the attack, there had been no unexpected casualties. Another thing was that most people weren't thrilled with Naruto's use of Kurama's chakra, but because he didn't perform a full manifestation and was known to be on relatively good terms with the fox, something that still terrified most villagers, he wasn't questioned too much. He knew Jiraiya would be calling him any minute to go get Tsunade back, and while he would have preferred to say no, it was necessary for his plan. He didn't care about the blonde Senju. He knew he would get some flack from her for recreating her technique and that he would probably have to fight her eventually, but she wasn't much of a threat by herself, hard to put down but ultimately nowhere near powerful enough to compete with him. Another thing was Itachi. He knew he'd run into the Uchiha, and for the first time he was nervous. He knew that when it came to raw power, he was leagues above Itachi, but the Sharingan was troublesome. The Mangekyo even more so. He had no counters to Tsukuyomi other than fighting blind while using Sage Mode, but Jiraiya would probably detect him if he did. Even Kurama's chakra was useless as the... I'm curious what Mr. Tailed Beast without a tail would say if he knew I have roughly the same chakra as Shukaku even without your assistance. Don't even get me started on that. Your chakra was already massive and you did everything you could to increase it even more. It's known as min-maxing, Kurama. Karen arrived at this point. He owed her answers about who he was, and while she had let him be the night before, he decided that she had waited long enough. Karen, please come here, he said. Yeah? He motioned for her to sit and began. I know you're curious about what happened yesterday, specifically what I did to Shukaku. Was that what it was called? They are a tailed beast, but there is something I need you to do before we begin. He extended his hand to her, she grabbed it, and he taped into Kurama's chakra. Not concerned about being detected through the seals he had around the house, he transformed to the same form he had used against Shukaku and felt Karen stiffen and try to pull back. He held her hand and said, "Remain calm. Do you believe me?" She nodded hesitantly, and he smiled at her, the dark red chakra turning golden and all the hostility she felt from it vanished. Instead she felt surrounded by a warm and comforting blanket, and all she could feel from him was kindness and caring. What are you?" she inquired, no longer afraid but rather concerned that she would offend him. He sensed it and drew her into a hug. The sensation seemed to multiply as she sank into his arms. She felt safe, at peace, and happy. "My name is Jinchuriki." Jiraiya discovered them in this state when he arrived, minus the chakra cloak. Karen slept peacefully in Naruto's arms, a smile on her face as the blonde stroked her hair in a comforting manner. "You're quite the player, aren't you?" he said with a frown to Jiraiya. "What do you desire, Jiraiya?" Before saying anything, the Toad Sage looked at him in silence for a moment. "Did you actually mean what you said?" "I did." He sighed and added, "Holding onto this hatred will not help you, Naruto. I will not forgive Jiraiya, not them, not you." Naruto continued, shaking his head. "But I'm not ruled by my hatred. I'm looking for my happiness, not taking away theirs." "Then why? You have the potential to be so much more." "I'm fine the way I am. I don't want to be anything more," Jiraiya said, looking at him with disappointment. "What about everyone else out there? Would you let them perish out of spite?" "I've already told you, Jiraiya, that I'm not a savior." "How about her?" Jiraiya asked, motioning to the sleeping Karen. "Would you also let her die?" Naruto's eyes narrowed and he growled. "If you're going to threaten her." "I'm not, but why is she worthy of protection while everyone else isn't?" "Because I decided so, because it was my choice and I thought she was worthy of it, and you want to take that choice away from me. I am not a puppet or a pawn, and I will not be used by you or anyone else." "So you'd let people, innocent people, die because you didn't want to save them?" "It's funny, isn't it? They die because they didn't have the power to save themselves, and I, who didn't think them worthy of salvation. It was just like that day. The village didn't have the power to save itself, and Namikaze, who chose to save them at my expense. After all, it's not like I had the power to fight back then." "And what would you have had him do? Allow thousands of people to perish, people he swore to protect?" "Like I said, it came down to power. He had the ability to choose and chose to do so. He was strong and I was not." "You didn't respond to my question." "I would have made a different choice for him, one that did not involve turning his own newborn child into a monster." "Your mother was also a Jinchuriki, was she a monster?" "I believe she proved herself to be a monster with or without the Kyuubi," Jiraiya said with a shake of his head. "Let's not get into that. I came here to pick you up. We're on a mission." "And why would I join you on a mission?" "We're going to get the new Hokage, and I'll train you along the way." "I thought I stated unequivocally that I did not want any of your training." "Even if you despise me, we'll be traveling, and you'll have the chance to learn from one of the Sannin." "I don't want to learn anything from you, Jiraiya." "Even the Hiraishin?" Jiraiya inquired, certain that the blonde would not refuse the technique. "Especially that jerk's signature jutsu," Naruto grumbled. "You would refuse such a powerful jutsu because of your hatred?" "I don't need that jerk's jutsu to protect myself or her. I'll do it with my own strength," Naruto said, sighing and continuing. "But I'll accompany you because we need a new Hokage and I'll tolerate you if it means getting one." Jiraiya smiled and pondered. Don't worry, kid. I'll make amends and ensure the Akatsuki don't touch you. Naruto and Jiraiya had been on the road for nearly a week in search of the potential new Hokage, Tsunade Senju. They had been traveling almost constantly from town to town during this time, only stopping to camp at night. Jiraiya had tried to go look at the hot springs in their first town, but Naruto had warned him that they were there for the mission and that he would not wait for Jiraiya's hobbies. Naturally, the Sannin didn't believe the blonde until he arrived at their campsite only to find it gone and having to double his time to catch up to the blonde en route to the next town. He had also attempted to interact with Naruto, but he spent most of his time in silence during the journey and went to sleep almost immediately after they arrived at camp when it wasn't his turn to take night watch, and even when he did manage to talk to the blonde, he didn't know how to interact with him. There was only so much they could discuss about the mission and personal questions were all met with, "Mind your own business." What worried him the most was that after his conversation with Naruto before the third exam, he went to see the Toads to confirm if what Naruto said about the prophecy was true. The Toad Elder was shocked to hear Jiraiya's account of the event and immediately told Jiraiya that it was true and that it was bad that not only Naruto knew about it, but that he was actively refusing to play a role in it. He had gone to Sarutobi with the information, but because things were hectic with the exams, they had decided to talk to Naruto about it after the exams, which had not gone as planned because Sarutobi was killed and Jiraiya could not convince the boy on his own. Jiraiya planned to take the boy on a training trip, but he wasn't sure he'd be able to persuade him given his violent reaction to being trained by him before the exams and his reluctance to even accompany him on this mission. Jiraiya sighed as they walked into Tanzakugai, where one of his informants had recently seen the blonde Senju. He only hoped she would agree to return and be Hokage because if she didn't, he would have to take the title or give it to Danzo, and he refused to let the old warhawk have the hat. We should find a hotel to stay in for the night because it's almost dark and there's no reason to camp in the woods if we don't have to, Jiraiya suggested. Jiraiya continued after Naruto looked at him for a moment but did not respond. You go find us a place to stay, and I'll go around gathering information. Naruto locked his gaze on him for a few moments before the Sannin relented and said, Don't worry, I won't be peering. I'll be watching out for her. You better, Naruto said as he walked away. Several hours later, Naruto was walking through town looking for Tsunade. He had no doubts that Jiraiya was spying on him, but he didn't care enough to stop him, and it would be better for him if he could find Tsunade himself. He couldn't wait for it all to be over. After the Chunin exams, he had almost everything he needed to pursue his goal directly, and all that remained were the final preparations. He wasn't about to be careless at this point, and despite knowing what was going to happen, he couldn't shake the feeling that something would go wrong. It didn't help that he knew he'd have to face Itachi and had no way of countering him. He wasn't completely defenseless, but he'd be fighting at a much lower capacity against an opponent who could defeat him with a single glance. He knew Itachi was a secret ally, but the Uchiha wasn't a genius for nothing, and if he discovered the truth, he would almost certainly try to kill Naruto, which the blonde didn't want when he couldn't fight back without showing far too much. Naruto grumbled as he walked through town. I should have brought Karen. She would have found Tsunade by now. The redhead had been disappointed when she awoke from her nap to find Jiraiya on the other couch. She had been even more disappointed when she learned that Naruto was leaving on an extended mission and that she would be unable to accompany him. He could have tried to persuade Jiraiya to bring her along by arguing that her sensory abilities would be useful, but he didn't want her anywhere near a fight with the likes of Itachi and Kisame anytime soon because just because he was relatively safe didn't mean she was. He also had other plans for her. He had planned to use another method at first, but he was confident she would follow him when he left, and having someone with medical knowledge on hand would be useful even if he could regenerate most wounds due to being Jinchuriki and Karen's heal bite worked for emergencies. There was more to medicine than healing wounds, after all. He wouldn't admit it, but he had grown attached to her, and the thought of Jiraiya being near her bothered him. He walked through the entertainment district, past various bars, until he saw a blonde woman drinking her sorrows away while a black-haired one fussed over her while holding a pig. He recognized them right away and had to admit that the manga didn't do them justice. Shizune was stunning, but Tsunade was something else entirely. He found it ironic that the most beautiful woman he had ever seen was an old granny. He approached the two of them, ignoring the not-so-quiet whispers about why some brat was in there, and sat across from both of them, Shizune looking at him in confusion, while Tsunade seemed annoyed by his presence. "So this is the slug princess I've been hearing so much about," he began. Tsunade asked, "What do you want, brat?" When Naruto noticed Shizune subtly moving her hand towards her hidden weapons pouch, he couldn't help but laugh. "I'm not here to fight. I just want to talk," Naruto said, raising his hands, and he sensed her surprise. He then addressed Tsunade, saying, "I'm here to give you a warning, or more accurately, a heads up." "And what exactly is this warning of yours?" "I'm here with your old teammate Jiraiya on a mission to bring you back to Konoha to become the 5th Hokage." "What makes you think I want to be Hokage again?" "I don't know why anyone would want the job. It's half mind-numbing paperwork and half impossible decisions." They both looked at Naruto, surprised. That is not an opinion shared by most Konoha shinobi. "Who are you?" Tsunade inquired. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki." "Well, why are you telling me this, Uzumaki Naruto?" "I found you before Jiraiya, and I thought you deserved the truth, not whatever sleazy nonsense he'll pull when he comes after you." "How about the truth?" "That he was chosen as Hokage, that he didn't want the hat and is attempting to force it on you, that if you don't take it, he will have to take it or Danzo will." Naruto stood up and stated, "I've said what I had to say, Tsunade Senju, the choice is yours. Don't let anyone take it away from you." He moved to leave, but Shizune stopped him. He looked back and saw Tsunade with a contemplative look in her eyes as Shizune said, "Thank you very much." He walked away, nodding. That night later, Naruto crept out the hotel room through the window. He had managed to get his own hotel room instead of having to share it with Jiraiya, which made what he was about to do much easier. He jumped through the rooftops, heading towards the nearby woods. After a few minutes, he came to a halt in the middle of the forest and gathered natural energy, entering sage mode, and scanning his surroundings until he found what he was looking for. "Found you," he thought, pausing for a moment before shaking his head and saying, "Not right now." He dashed even deeper into the trees, becoming a blur of motion as he sped towards his destination. After a few more minutes, though at the rate he was going, it would have felt more like an hour to an average shinobi, he discovered the hidden campsite he was looking for. He didn't bother to hide his presence as he landed near the tree line, and sure enough, a certain glasses-wearing silver-haired spy appeared beside him, his chakra scalpel poised to sever Naruto's throat. Kabuto. "Hello, Naruto-kun, it's great to see you again. I'm not your adversary, Kabuto." "So I heard, Naruto-kun, how did you find out I was a spy?" "I take pride in being a very good one." "I suppose so, given that Sasori hasn't realized you betrayed him," Naruto smirked. This caught Kabuto off guard. Only he and Orochimaru were aware of it. Naruto sensed Kabuto's surprise and confusion and laughed. "How?" growled Kabuto. "Would you believe me if I said I read about it in a book?" Before Kabuto could finish his sentence, a new voice spoke up. "Did you learn Toad Sage mode from that book as well, Naruto-kun?" "I did it, believe it or not." "It must have been a really good book back then," Orochimaru observed. "It had its flaws, but I liked it overall." "Is there anything else you'd like to share about what you learned?" "The true history of the world, secrets never meant to be discovered, the key to immortality," Naruto grinned at Orochimaru's subtle shift in posture. That sort of thing, he said. I see. He inquired as Naruto continued to smile at Orochimaru. What can I do for you, Naruto-kun? Are you here to close another deal? Unquestionably, yes. Orochimaru looked perplexed as he spoke. Well, I'm paying attention. You arms, Naruto said, motioning to the Sanin's carefully covered arms. Tsunade is unable to heal them. Orochimaru asked with a frown. And how come? Because they are not injured, they are that way because the Reaper Death Seal has taken part of your soul, and Tsunade cannot heal your soul. I'm assuming you have a solution because you brought it up. I do. The Shinigami mask can be used to free souls trapped inside the Shinigami's stomach. Orochimaru said with a chuckle. Do you happen to know where the mask is? Of course, in my possession. Kabuto tensed, preparing to fight the blonde and retrieve the mask, while Orochimaru looked thoughtful and said, after a while. Do you think you have it in you right now? Naruto said with a shake of his head. In 2 months, when you send your men to recover Sasuke, he continued, ignoring the spikes of surprise. Come talk to me. I'll be happy to release your arms. Orochimaru looked at Naruto for a moment, searching for signs of deception. When he found none, he nodded, and Naruto began to walk back the way he came. I don't think you mentioned what you want out of this deal, Naruto-kun. I'll tell you in due time, he said as he waved away, then remembered something and said. Oh, and please bring a disposable minion for me. With that, the blonde dashed off into the trees, leaving a suspicious Kabuto and a curious Orochimaru behind. He walked away, nodding. The following day. Naruto hardly slept that night, partly because his deal with Orochimaru had everything in place and all he had to do was wait, but mostly because he knew today was the day he would meet Itachi. He had felt the duo's presence last night while searching for Orochimaru and had been mentally preparing himself for the confrontation since he returned. He was relieved Jiraiya didn't seem to notice because he didn't have the patience to answer any of the men's questions right now. It's funny, I know he's not going to kill me, but this is the most nervous I've ever been before a fight. Calm down, kid. Everything will be fine. We'll get through this, and then it'll be a straight line to freedom. You're right. You're right. When he heard a knock on the door, he froze, took a deep breath, and moved to open it. What he saw surprised him, not because he wasn't expecting him, but because he shouldn't be here yet. What are you doing here, Sasuke? Naruto, we must. Sasuke, relax, take a deep breath. Sasuke said with a shake of his head. Itachi is on his way here. He went to Konoha looking for you and tracked you here when you weren't there. The only reason I arrived before him was because I ran here non-stop. Alright, Sasuke, calm down. You don't understand, Itachi is here, and he's coming for you. That we are, said a voice from the other end of the corridor. Both boys turned to look and found themselves frozen. There stood a man with blue skin and a massive sword, dressed in a black cloak with red clouds and a feral smile in his jagged teeth, but it wasn't him who made both boys freeze. It was his partner, dressed similarly but with black hair and red spinning eyes. Naruto's mind raced. Sasuke wasn't supposed to be here, at least not yet. Jiraiya was also nowhere to be seen. He was far enough away that Naruto couldn't pick him up with his emotion sensing. But what troubled the blonde the most was what he could pick up from the duo. Kisame radiated confidence and a thrill for combat that Naruto shared most of the time. Itachi, on the other hand, had hostility. Does he know? He wondered. Sasuke, on the other hand, was frozen by the sudden influx of memories he had. All the deaths he had witnessed as a result of the massacre flooded his mind in a grim flashback. He could remember every kill Itachi forced him to watch with his damnable genjutsu, every murder of his family he had to endure, his Sharingan subconsciously activating as he managed to break free from the spell. Hey, Itachi, isn't that your younger brother? Kisame inquired. Sasuke growled as he glared at the man he despised. Itachi Uchiha, I've been looking forward to this day for a long time. Itachi didn't even look at Sasuke, keeping his gaze fixed on Naruto, a suspicious look on his face as Sasuke's hand burst into lightning as he yelled. Die. When Sasuke got close enough, he lunged at Itachi, his hand covered in black lightning and his Sharingan eyes gleaming with murder, but that proved ineffective when Itachi sidestepped the attack and used one of his hands to grab Sasuke's own while his other was used to hold the boy by the neck. However, Sasuke had greatly improved and the Chidori burst, preventing Itachi from breaking his wrist and allowing him to attack. He did so by using his now free hand to punch Itachi in the face. The elder Uchiha moved his arm to block but was surprised by the force of the blow. His arm went numb and he skidded back a few meters, releasing Sasuke's throat in the process. When his instincts screamed and he put up a hasty block to defend himself against Kisami's kick, he was sent flying back and hit the wall with great force, coughing up some blood before standing up. What's the matter with you, Itachi? Losing to such a jerk. Itachi didn't say anything as he walked back to his previous position, only giving his younger brother a glance before returning his gaze to Naruto, who appeared to have snapped out of his thoughts and taken a defensive stance. This seemed to enrage Sasuke even more, as he prepared to attack again, only to be stopped by Naruto. Restrain yourself. If we want to make it out alive, we need to think. Oh, you still think you'll be able to escape? Kisame asked arrogantly. In another situation, Naruto would have gladly engaged the man in a battle of taunts, hopefully followed by a battle of fists. Now, however, he was far too preoccupied with figuring Itachi out. He could sense Itachi's suspicion and made it a point to avoid looking into the Uchiha's eyes at all costs. Itachi suddenly dashed towards him with a kick, and Naruto had to block it lest it hit Sasuke behind him. The power of the blow was nothing he couldn't handle, but he still had to keep up appearances and faked a flinch. He ducked under Itachi's punch and retaliated with one of his own. The power behind it managed to force Itachi's guard open, and Naruto. Itachi, on the other hand, grabbed his arm and pulled Naruto along with him as they crashed through the wall and into the ground below. Sasuke tried to follow them, but Kisame got in his way. You are not leaving. Naruto is involved. They exchanged a few blows in midair before landing and immediately jumping away, standing across from each other. Naruto growled, Itachi. You're a danger to Konoha. What? Naruto asked, confused. I was one of the Anbu who used to watch you, Naruto-kun, and I know you don't like Konoha. What on earth are you talking about? Your lies will not deceive my eyes. Naruto growled. Itachi had seen right through him, just as he had feared. He glared at Itachi, still not looking into the man's eyes, and spat. I'm not a threat to your village, Itachi. All I want is freedom. I'm afraid, Naruto-kun, that is not possible. You are a Jinchuriki, and if you refuse to serve Konoha, I will have to kill you. Why? To keep Madara from getting the Kyuubi? Itachi's normally calm expression cracked, and Naruto couldn't help but chuckle at the Uchiha's surprise. He inquired when his expression returned to normal. How? You know, people always ask me that. Itachi charged at him, but unlike when Naruto first met him in the middle of the battlefield, they both exchanged blows in rapid succession, with Itachi feeling pressured by the sheer strength of Naruto's blows and the blonde having to deal with purposefully limiting his own eyesight to prevent an instant kill move from Itachi. Itachi accelerated through hand seals by using the force of one of Naruto's blows to propel himself away. Fire style. Fantastic fireball. A fireball larger than anything Naruto had seen so far, except his own, came flying at him. He saw it coming and responded with his own technique. Water Dragon Water Style. The water dragon appeared out of the water in the environment, charging towards Itachi's fireball, and both jutsu collided. Unfortunately, despite having the elemental advantage, Naruto was only able to nullify Itachi's jutsu. The collision resulted in an explosion and a large cloud of mist surrounding the area. Let's hope this is enough to attract Jiraiya's attention, wherever he may be, Naruto reasoned. Along with Sasuke. After Naruto and Itachi flew away, Sasuke rushed at him again, launching blow after blow that was easily evaded despite the Uchiha holding nothing back, even going so far as to use his curse mark. The only thing he hadn't been able to pull off thus far was the Kirin, but given how his opponent's sword seemed to absorb chakra, he wasn't sure if it would even work. He launched another kick as fast as he could in an attempt to land a proper hit. He had stopped using the super strength technique after Kisame began using Samahata to absorb the chakra from the attacks, rendering it ineffective. This had no effect, as Kisame simply pushed him back, his cocky grin infuriating Sasuke even more. "Is this all you have? I thought Itachi's younger brother would be better than this," Kisame remarked. "Be quiet." Kisame grinned and said. An explosion shook the building, making both of us look at the hole where the other two fell through. Damn, the brat must be good if he's gotten Itachi this far. I expected him to be captured without a fight. Sasuke growled and rushed Kisame again, but this time he had a plan. They exchanged a few blows before Sasuke managed to position himself correctly. He performed a double kick and Kisame blocked with his sword just as he had predicted. He used it to push himself over the man and towards the hole in the wall, catching Kisame by surprise. When he arrived at the hole, he realized he didn't have time to think and that Kisame was right behind him, so he jumped, and as he fell, he saw Naruto and Itachi clashing fire jutsu, and the last thing he saw before an explosion blocked his view was Itachi overpowering Naruto. When the dust settled, he looked around, ready to attack Itachi, when he noticed something that caused him to freeze, the blood in his veins to turn cold, and he was assaulted with images of his clan being murdered. No. Was all he could think as his eyes changed and a bloody tear fell from his cheek. Itachi stood right in front of his eyes, one hand holding his blonde brother in all but blood, the other holding the kunai he was using to pierce Naruto right through the hearth. And then the world discovered fire. Naruto is involved. Itachi noticed Naruto going through hand seals again after the mist had cleared, and he decided to match the Uzumaki. Naruto knew he would have to do something to prevent the Uchiha from revealing to Jiraiya that he planned to leave, and if his plan worked, it would do just that. Fire style. Dragon's breath. Yelled Naruto, spitting a massive wave of fire at Itachi. Itachi sped through the same series of hand seals, copying the jutsu and using it to match Naruto. They remained tied for a few moments before Naruto felt Sasuke approaching and saw Sasuke jumping towards them out of the corner of his eye. He also felt Jiraiya approaching the very limits of his sensory capabilities. This proved to be the perfect distraction for Itachi, who used the opportunity to pour more chakra into his jutsu and push the Uzumaki back, causing an explosion in his position. Itachi didn't even wait for the dust to settle before dashed towards Naruto's position, grabbing him by the neck and stabbing him in the hearth with a kunai as soon as he saw the blonde silhouette. Itachi could see Naruto's face through the dust, and despite the blood dripping from his lips, he had a grin on his lips. "If you sell me out," Naruto joked, despite how strained his voice sounded. "I'm informing Sasuke about the massacre." Naruto laughed as Itachi's eyes widened. Itachi growled, "You'll die here." "No," Naruto said, coughing. "No, I won't." It was at this point that the dust cleared completely, and Itachi noticed his younger brother looking at them, his face pale and his eyes wide. He saw how Sasuke's Sharingan matured into a Mangekyo and was looking at him with the same hatred he had that night. "Amaterasu," Sasuke said quietly, and Itachi was forced to let go of Naruto and summon his Susanoo to block the black flames that appeared in Sasuke's focal point. The pain was excruciating, and he deactivated it a split second later because Jiraiya of the Sannin appeared in front of him and landed a blow that sent him flying. When he stood up, his partner appeared beside him and said, "They're gone. Leader Sama will be upset." Itachi, on the other hand, was preoccupied with Naruto's previous words. Is he really aware? In the nearby woods, they all appeared in a body flicker, and Naruto collapsed to the ground, blood pooling beneath him. "You're insane, brat," Kurama said from within the seal as they worked to heal their Jinchuriki's life-threatening injury. "You just realized it now?" He responded with a dry wit. Meanwhile, Jiraiya yelled and slapped Sasuke to wake him up. "Enough. If we're going to save him, I need you to keep your cool." Sasuke took a deep breath to calm himself before exhaling and nodding. How should I proceed?" he inquired, his voice trembling. "There's a blonde woman in town, followed by a black woman and a pig. Her name is Tsunade. Bring her here, she should be in one of the casinos right now." Jiraiya used what he knew of medical ninjutsu and first aid to try to help the blonde boy, and Sasuke dashed off. After a while, Sasuke returned with the two women, who were both surprised to see the boy who had spoken to them the day before in such a state. Tsunade froze at the sight of blood, while Shizune immediately went to work trying to save his life. The next few hours were a blur of Naruto slipping in and out of consciousness. He vaguely remembered Guy having come looking for Sasuke, and with much encouragement they managed to persuade the Uchiha that Naruto would be fine and that he should return. He didn't know what Jiraiya did, but Tsunade seemed to have snapped out of her trance and managed to overcome her fear of blood to assist him. When he finally recovered completely, it was already nightfall, and if he hadn't had two of the best medics on the planet as well as being a Jinchuriki, he would have taken even longer, if he recovered at all. As he stood up from his tent and walked outside, he noticed a group of people talking around a campfire. "You shouldn't be up yet. It's a miracle you're still alive," Tsunade said. "I'm fine," she says. He waved as he sat in one of the logs next to Shizune, unsealed some rations, and began eating. After a while, he inquired. "So?" Tsunade asked, "So? Did you make your decision?" Tsunade said with a sigh. "I'm still unsure. I lost too much for Konoha, and I don't think I can just go back." "But you have to, the village needs you, and it's also what Nawaki and Dan would have wanted," Jiraiya contended. Naruto spit at him and glared at him. "Jiraiya, please stop trying to manipulate people for once in your miserable life. You only want her to do it because you don't want to do it yourself." Tsunade noticed this and commented. "What do you think I should do, Naruto?" "I believe it is your choice," he said. "That was not my question. Contrary to popular belief, I respect your decision. Konoha asked, and you gave until they demanded too much, and you chose to say no." He continued when he noticed they were all paying attention. Most of them would do whatever they were told and claim it was their duty to obey. A man chooses, a slave obeys. You chose to fight for Konoha, and when the price became too high, you chose to stop. I believe that if you are to return, it must be because you chose to, not because you were forced to." He then smiled and said, "I'm sure whatever you choose, your lover and your brother will understand and love you either way." She gave him a brief glance before smiling and saying, "Has anyone ever told you that you appear older than you are? That's ironic coming from a granny who looks like she's 20. She decided to tease him after noticing a tick mark above her brow. "Oh, so you find me attractive?" He chuckled as he saw right through her attempt. "Tsunade, you and your apprentice are easily in the top 10 most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life, with you easily taking the top spot. Is that correct?" Shizune blushed quietly beside her as she asked with a chuckle. "Of course, unlike Jiraiya, I have enough self-respect not to stare or make inappropriate remarks," she said as she laughed at the shot aimed at Jiraiya. "Well, That makes you a much better gentleman than he is. You say that because you didn't see him with the redhead in his arms, Jiraiya pointed out. They all looked at him, and he sighed before saying anything. There's more to a relationship than sex, Jiraiya, which you might not realize given that all of your intimate contact with women is paid for. Tsunade laughed as Jiraiya grumbled but did not respond. Well, you silenced him. Where were you when we were genin? I would have loved to have had you around. He sheepishly scratched the back of his head but said nothing. They stood in a comfortable silence for a few minutes before Tsunade stood up and said, Well, I can't exactly leave the job to him because he'd spend the entire day peeping and getting no work done, and if it means I get to have you around to make me laugh, then I guess I'll take the hat. Naruto nodded at her, Shizune smiled, and Jiraiya smiled back, but knowing him for as long as she had, she could tell he was thinking. Except for Jiraiya, who took the night watch and spent the entire night thinking, they all made their way over to their tents. How am I going to persuade him to accompany me?
After 2 months.
His return to the village had been chaotic to say the least. Sasuke had checked on him once before diving headfirst back into his training. The Uchiha didn't like the outcome of his fight, and while he was happy that he had awakened the Mangekyo, he was irritated that he still wasn't strong enough to kill Itachi, and especially that his weakness had caused such an injury to his best friend. He also thought it was a good idea to inform Karen and Naruto that when they returned to Konoha, they were met with a red missile tackling them, and he had to spend the rest of the day comforting the girl and assuring her that he was fine, something Tsunade made sure to point out. He had a few encounters with Jiraiya during this time, but the man seemed preoccupied with assisting Tsunade with her new job and mostly ignored him, leading him to believe that the majority of their encounters had been pure chance and not planned. As the date of his release approached, he spent most of his time with Karen, assisting her with her training and reviewing the final details of his plan to ensure there were no mistakes. He had also finally ended things with Ino for good. It was clear that Karen was attracted to him and he couldn't deny he felt the same, albeit much less. He decided that things with Ino weren't clear and he wasn't about to two-time them, so he went to the blonde girl and cleared things up. She didn't take it well, indicating that she was still hoping for something, but it had to be done. With that out of the way, he finally took his biggest risk and told Karen he was leaving. He didn't tell her everything, but he told her enough that if she chose to sell him out, he'd be in big trouble. That fear was unfounded when she chose to follow him right away. He had informed Sasuke of the costs of the Mangekyo, and it appeared that the Uchiha had finally lost patience, demanding to know how Naruto knew those things. Of course, he hadn't told him the truth, but instead told him that he would tell him when his goal had been met, which Sasuke wasn't happy about but let it go. He felt bad about the new Hokage because he liked her and was sure that under different circumstances he could have easily befriended her, but he wasn't about to abandon his plan at this point. When he was walking through Konoha on his way to his apartment and noticed a familiar signature hovering just outside the range of his sensor, he made his way to one of the more isolated areas of the village and a familiar snake appeared before him. It's finally time, Naruto-kun. You know, I'm surprised you came personally. I would have expected you to send your men given how unpopular you are in Konoha right now. Something this important had to be seen through personally, Orochimaru said, motioning with his arms. I suppose so, Naruto said, chuckling. Let's not waste any more time. You have no idea how long I've been waiting for this day. They both made their way to the Uchiha compound, where they found both Sasuke and Karen. Does everything look ready? Naruto inquired of Karen. Yes, I have everything. What's up, Naruto? Sasuke inquired, surprised to see Orochimaru with him. He knew his friend had dealings with the snake, but he had no idea what they were doing here. It's time for us to part ways, Sasuke. Orochimaru will grant you the power you need to kill Itachi. Naruto, you're considering defecting from the village. I know you don't like it, but you're going to join Orochimaru? No, You're joining Orochimaru. I have other responsibilities. You're not making sense, said Sasuke, shaking his head. Don't you see how this village is impeding your progress, Sasuke-kun? Orochimaru stated this. What exactly do you mean? They are impeding your ability to gain power and exact your revenge. I can provide you with more power, the power to crush Itachi. You know, he's right, Naruto said. Kakashi barely taught us anything. In fact, I trained you more in that month than he did in 6. Sasuke lowered his gaze in thought, knowing Naruto was correct. He felt like Konoha was holding him back. His sensei was too preoccupied with his own guilt to properly teach them. All Konoha cared about was worshipping him as the last Uchiha, which was one of the reasons he admired Naruto so much. The blonde didn't care that he was the last Uchiha, instead seeing him as just Sasuke. What are you doing? He inquired of Naruto. After that, I have to say hello to an old friend in Kiri? Who can say? Sasuke deliberated for another moment before making his decision and saying, if it allows me to kill Itachi, I'll do it. Good, Naruto said, grinning at Orochimaru. Collect your belongings. Naruto then addressed Orochimaru, saying, call your men, it's time I fulfill my end of the bargain. Orochimaru simply laughed. The Naka Shrine. After gathering everything he wanted to take and having Naruto seal away the Uchiha compound so it wouldn't be touched, they made their way to the Naka Shrine. Sasuke was surprised that Naruto knew not only about the shrine's existence but also its exact location, but he chose not to question it. Naruto turned to Karen after arriving at the shrine and said, please, Karen, the mask. She handed him the mask, and he motioned for them to step back as he contemplated it. This is the end. Are you ready? Kurama inquired. Are you sure? I'm as prepared as I'll ever be. Here we go with nothing. He put the mask on his face and immediately felt the difference. The sensation was indescribable, and he couldn't help but notice the similarity between this and what he felt in the dark void before rebirth. The others were taken aback when the Shinigami appeared behind Naruto's back, arms outstretched and knife in mouth, mirroring Naruto's movements as he made to draw the blade and move it to his own stomach. Karen exclaimed as the Reaper's blade moved and a large gash appeared in Naruto, causing blood to spill on the floor. She watched as the souls escaped from the Reaper's belly and dissipated, all except one, which flew towards Orochimaru and impacted his chest. Orochimaru looked in awe as the stolen piece of his soul was returned. His once darkened arms returned to their pale color and the pain in them vanished. He moved his fingers and felt a childish glee at being able to do something so simple. Naruto removed the mask and knelt, clutching his injured stomach. Kurama's chakra quickly began to heal it as he was helped to his feet. Orochimaru chuckled and said, well, Naruto-kun, you are truly amazing. Naruto motioned him away and said, the offering. Orochimaru motioned to his men, and a sound nin who had failed him was brought forward and thrown onto the floor. Naruto grabbed him and held him in place before moving through the hand seals he had practiced so much and was so eager to perform, and he let out his excitement in the form of a cruel grin as the ashes covered the body. They cleared the way to reveal a young man with blonde hair and blue eyes, the Konoha headband proudly displayed on his brow as he looked around the room confusedly before locking eyes with the other blonde. Naruto's eyes gleamed and his grin turned positively insane as the man uttered the words he had been waiting to hear for 12 long years. Naruto? Is it you, son? All these years, all the preparations, planning, training, and meticulous planning had all led to this point, and Naruto had never felt more free, more alive than now, as he stared down the man who started it all and said, good day, dear father.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.